the two clerks, think of coming to work once every 2 years, your job once every 2 years. You're supposed to be perfect. So 2 senior clerks on Saturday self-reported at about 11:30. No one's around. Can't reach anyone. Hey, we forgot to, Democrat, Republican, we forgot to initial. So, depending upon what side of that political coin you're on, you can play games with it. You know. So, I hope we can save it. Hi.
Hi.
We're early birds. Hello, David.
How are you?
Dave, I put by your place a resolution I drafted. Here is support I got emailed over to me from St. Joe.
That's a bad sign.
And
I
deal with them at all.
I deal with them a lot.
Do you?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I don't care. So, how are they on
Oh, they did freedom votes.
Looks like it, yeah.
I never heard of that.
And I also talked to the state board and asked for them to give me an idea of what their thoughts are. Dave in the grapevine, what I'm getting, we should be prepared for 6 a.m. We should be prepared for places not opening. On time. Did you give them a count on how the Republican call did with the phone calls?
With the what?
Phone calls.
I don't know. I haven't got any status from anybody.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, we can't do that.
Hmm?
We can't do that. That's expressly against what the state said.
It's not in the code that way. You just don't have anything expressed. The expression is provisional voting is there.
Because that's what both of those guys said. That Coach Barr and now this Dale person as well.
That's not what Kuchevar said. I talked to him this morning.
That they're requiring those.
You should do not let those votes go down the drain. Take the action. It's been done by St. Joe County. We've approved it.
Well, what about the problem of we put out a public notice that the votes are invalid because of the clerk error and the revote? First you say
you need your public notice. Why would you support a public notice that's an error?
Well, I understand that, but once we took an action, and now we're trying to backpedal.
Oh, Dave, you're disenfranchising a lot of friggin' voters, all due to non-training of 2 assholes.
And then if you don't do it, and then there is a challenge,
you deal with it.
Then you're going to lose them. You're going to lose the same votes.
Yeah, but you're not going to. You're right now. You're creating a nightmare for
all voters come on the 6th. You're indicating you're incompetent.
Oh,
Oh, come
there
on.
was a human error. My God, if there's a human among us that doesn't make a mistake, I'd like to
Dave,
know who that
there was
person
no one
is.
there to take a phone call. Come on.
Oh,
Do you know Sunday Kabaki refused to work with them? You know that people are calling, as I sat there that morning,
but
when
they
you
talked
came
to
through
Kathy.
the door, that poor girl was talking every second.
yeah.
Was
Let's
the
not make
only
it-
employee at
Now
9:30.
listen, let's make this clear as it was the day we started to discuss this. Let's not change this into some dramatic, oh, we didn't train, we didn't do this, we didn't do that. Because the training has been the same as it's been.
No,
You
there's
get one,
no
you get one, you
experience,
get-
number one.
Well, but you get one
And you
class,
can
get
only
the
do it
hardest
with
people.
lengthy training. And you've got a clerk who could give a shit who's running for office, and you know.
But the same poll workers got trained. They get one class.
They
and then
never
show up
trained
on the
before.
election day,
These are
and that's
two
that.
senior males.
So, I mean, I guess I don't buy it.
You're looking political as hell, kid.
You're making it political.
No,
I
I'm
mean,
trying
we-
to save voters, and you're
I
gonna create a
understand
nightmare.
that.
You're gonna
But I
create a
think
nightmare.
If the
Dave,
legal-
you took an oath as an attorney. Follow the friggin'
Oh,
oath.
now, don't bring up the attorney. After I had that lady, her Facebook post was just ridiculous. That was,
Facebook?
yeah.
Dave, don't
They're on
bring
their
this shit
own
behind
word.
the scene.
How are you?
How are you, Dave? What do you do?
How are you doing?
JJ, how are you?
Ethan, this is a resolution, Dan, this is a resolution I'm gonna make, and Ethan, here's the background to it, a little bit. And this was done in St. Joe County.
Is it the same one?
No, it's the same format, and our attorney follows a format similar for resolutions, so it played in pretty good. At least it looks like we know what we're doing.
The perception's reality. Might as well look like you know. That's where I fall down the job. I can't even pull that off.
I know.
Now, what that lady did, by crowing about that on the frickin'
We
personal
got this yesterday.
website.
This was submitted via
What's going on?
the county website, and it's from personnel and stuff with the candidate stuff. Mailboxes,
Yeah, yeah.
and Scott told me to
Like,
give
meeting
them,
in 3 days here. Yeah, I really did.
they're pulling them out, basically.
Hi.
So they weren't mailed, they were just shoved in the box, which you're not supposed to do.
You know,
I think so.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
that one
This
that they
is a
mentioned,
motion
they said they
to
will keep
save
the stuff
the
till
votes.
Thursday, and then they're gonna throw it out. So if that candidate wants the stuff, then he needs to go to the post office and pick it up, otherwise they're gonna toss it. So,
No, I think what that lady did was wrong. And it was insulting to any other attorney.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
it's one
sorry
thing.
that we've hit that stage.
I mean, it's one, I mean, if somebody files a complaint, so be it, and we'll do it. But to me, as an attorney, I was offended by her post. Just to
Dave,
hear her
what do
crow
you,
about.
what do you do in an email, having private conversations?
Correct, that's what I'm saying. I mean, there's nothing we can do about it now, but I'll tell you what, I mean, that's insulting. And I don't know who that person is, but that's ridiculous.
Well, you know,
It is. That's the worst behavior in the company attorney who's trained to hold their tongue and know how to act.
and what does that have to do with you as the president of a county election board? What does that have to do with you?
But it came through our formal complaint process.
No, it did not. It came
I
from the
know.
Karen Martin.
I know. I
Sending
said
to
if
you a
someone- If
Facebook.
someone filed a complaint, then we would deal with it.
Exactly.
But as a person, as a human, and as a professional, it was offensive. What she did was offensive. There's nothing me as a board member I can do at this second. But I think it was really wrong. That's all I'm saying. And I'm sorry you don't agree, but that's where my ethical requirement is different. We can change language. You should tell him to.
Who? Tell who?
What you just told me on his initials, that you talked to Coach for. You should talk to him about that. Tell him.
I talked to him this morning.
No. Because that's what, like you said, he was totally different opinion. That there's an appellate case, those initials, if they're not present, they're strict. After the election board did what we were trying to do, that's why I'm concerned.
Yeah, I'm glad.
You know what I mean? Seriously.
There was a written memo of some kind by the Democratic attorney, Kochevar. I talked to him this morning, and I asked him what was his position on proceeding forward to waive the signatures. And he says, do it. In other words, he can't guarantee that it's all going to fly on a recount. But he says we'd be remiss if what we did was to zing people who couldn't make it back in.
And I would think that every effort should be made and is being made to have these people come back and re-vote. If in that situation, we'll do the ABS 5 and spoil their prior ballot. But JJ, I read the law as it does not have the signatures, those ballots that for people that do not re-vote shall be rejected at the inspection. There is a savings clause as it relates to absentee ballots. If there's a poll worker error, but it does not, that unfortunately does not apply when there is an absence of a
Okay, that's what I was worried about when you're saying. I'm with you. I'd like to save anything I could.
I don't believe you, Dave. I think right now, why wouldn't you err on the side of saving the votes? Why wouldn't you do that?
But if the law doesn't say we can do that,
Oh, come on, Dave. That can all be cured in a courtroom. But for you to void the votes before they even get a chance to be counted.
all right, at 3 o'clock. All right, let's call the meeting to order. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we get roll call?
JJ?
Present?
Dave?
Here.
Karen? Here.
All right, we have our meeting scheduled today regarding an early voting issue that we had on Saturday morning, October 27th, for the ballots cast at the Portage Clerk's Office or County Complex between 8:30 and 11:30 in the morning. The discussion has been on how to cure the poll worker error of placing the initials on the ballot envelopes. We have taken the initial step of contacting those voters to make requests to have them re-vote. Madam Clerk, if you could give us a status as to what that progress has been.
Excuse me, Mr. Banks, can you talk a little louder? I couldn't hear you back there. I don't know if anybody else is having a hard time.
Is that better? Is it on? All right, well, we'll start, if Madam Clerk, you could give us a status of the recall and then try to notify all the affected voters from Saturday the 27th.
Louder, Mr. Banks, I can't hear you.
A report was created with a total of approximately 118 voters that it affected. It was suggested that a bipartisan group contact these individuals. Victoria Gresham and Kathy Kazuzik were the individuals that were to be handling the situation. It's my understanding, it could be wrong, but Victoria, were most of the calls done with you there or without you?
Just in the morning on common day.
Okay, and Kathy you said you worked till 7:30 p.m. that night, got hold of most of them?
I got as many as I could. A lot of voters we don't have contact information for, no answer, immediately went to busy, no phone, no email. 5 said, I must tell you, every voter that I did talk to was extremely unhappy. 5 have indicated that after this meeting, they would be willing. A couple came in earlier today. I had asked them to wait until after this meeting. As you know, they would have to do an affidavit. We would have to get their ballot, their original ballot cast, the affidavit put around the ballot, and then issue it. They can't go through the poll book. Your office would have to print a ballot for that voter. We had voters at that location from Haley Portage, but they came as far as Liberty 5, Jackson, and out of all the voters that I was able to make contact with, 5 had indicated they could come back in.
Out of how many?
Out of, let me see,
I think it was 118.
I thought I counted 122 here. But when the poll workers called Saturday, myself and my deputy were here. There were 2 gentlemen working the early voting site in Portage. And in fairness to them, I never like to blame a poll worker unless they've really proved that they've done something wrong. These were 2 fill-ins. The girls that normally worked that had previous obligations.
And who appointed them?
That would have been the clerk's office.
Thank you.
I attended the training session for all the early vote site workers. Our fill-in people were not in that session. The one man got nervous because he could tell my voice I was upset, and I was assured by somebody else in the office that these 2 individuals had little to no training. When I talked to the voters, I can't repeat the things they said about these 2 men, but like I told them, then you do it. You sign up and you do it. They're there to help you. They had problems. They did the best they could. Calling to tell you that they realized their problem at 11:25 when the call came to our office after numerous calls went unanswered to the election board. I immediately told the gentleman they had a ballot box that was already stuffed with ballots from Friday. They started putting these Saturday ballots in that box. I told them to put that box on the side and I'll start a new box. Because I knew at that point, I contacted, after I got the gentleman squared away, I contacted the Indiana Election Division. I knew at that point, we had to separate those ballots and keep them separate. And identify the voters, which I don't have access to central points. I was been denied access in June of this year to look up any voters, whether they were mailed a ballot, an application. I was cut off from that, so I could just search a voter at this point. But
And who cut you off? Who cut you off?
It's not relevant.
It is relevant.
It's not relevant. You're not
looking
running the
at
election.
fault. You're looking at fault for 122
Directly, I
votes.
offered up to the election board. We could identify these voters from 8:30 a.m. to 11:30 p.m., 11:30 a.m. We could identify them through Central Point, run a report, and pull those ballots, quarantine those ballots. As you know, I contacted the Indiana Election Division. Matthew Kochever, an attorney with the Election Division, answered back. The Election Division will tell you that there's state statutes, there's laws to be followed, and he recommended that we attempt to call these voters. As you know, I don't know if any of you know this, I'm an 18-year employee of Porter County. I've done elections for 16 years. So I can tell you I speak with knowledge of all elections. I made one mistake. First year I was put into a supervisor position. And I'll still stand up and hold my hand high, yes, I did it. I did it. We make mistakes.
Only made one
Mistakes happen.
mistake.
So a mistake was made. We were able to quarantine the ballots. I I get a call that we're going to meet in the clerk's office Monday. Somehow, somebody went over to Portage and transported those ballots back. I was told that it was a Democrat Republican, but those ballots never should have left Portage. They should have been kept in Portage, in my opinion, but they were transported back to the clerk's office. Did not have a chance to view the ballots. They're seal numbers. The ballots are kept secure. They're seal numbers to see if it had been opened at any time. So if you recall, Mr. Staples, my recommendation to the board at that time was to quarantine the ballots. No harm, no foul. We count the ballots. In the state of Indiana, we know an election has no one, with the exception of provisional ballots. Provisional ballots are no different than our regular ballots. They're issued to voters who fail to show their driver's license at the door, or more documentation is needed. And as we teach the poll workers, or I used to, that don't hand them out like Halloween candy. If the races are close, we've got a lot of nail biters waiting. So you must call our office. We are the only ones. The voter registration is the only official office that has all the master records of the voters of this county. We can look on the back end of that voter's record. I've been dealing with 3 of them today, as to what happened, why they're not registered. Woman just called, she registered her and her husband online. I can tell her to the second what day she did it, and to the second.
Let's stay on track with what we got.
And do we have a central point printout with the names of the voters?
It's somewhat of a printout, Mr. Stankwith.
Between the hours of 8:30 and 11:30 on Saturday.
Yes.
And it contains more than just the ones that did not have dual witnessing.
Well, they had more voters, but we just identified from 8:30 to 11:30.
So there was a chain of custody. The box came here. It was sealed when we met at 9:30 a.m. All members, Attorney Lowe, and we considered that an emergency board meeting.
Right.
And we agreed to a dual plan, which was A, contact the voters, and B, meet today to try to save the 122 votes.
Or 18.
Or 119. 18. So we do have a chain of custody, we do have an identification of the voters involved, and the remaining issue is, are we going to go forward and try to save these votes?
I would recommend to you, we're doing this for 16 years, but you are the election board member, that you do save these votes. The 5 or 10 people that are willing to come back in here, begrudgingly, I might add, okay, so we take their new vote.
Okay, we got your recommendation. Thank you.
What do the other voters?
All right, so we've made the motion, and we approved it in our emergency board meeting to notify the voters that were affected. We've accomplished that, correct? Has it been done?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So the plan B of our process that we originally adopted is that any of the votes that were not cast or revoted, after we provided notice, they would be placed in a provisional ballot to be reviewed at the time of certification. Correct?
Correct.
Am I correct, Mr. Stankiewicz, on recollection of our previous practice and the process that we put in place and voted unanimously to do so?
And I
Correct?
just said yes, and I've tendered a resolution to that effect to save the voters.
So at this point, we are still on that plan to notify the voters, which we've done. Now, anybody who does not vote between now and Election Day, those remaining ballots will be placed in the provisional and noted to be from the Portage clerk's location. Correct?
That's
That would
my
be the
resolution
standard.
address.
That would be the standard operating procedure that we adopted at our emergency meeting. Correct?
Correct.
Madam Clerk, same?
Yes. I had one question, though. Kathy, I know this is probably not the first time this has ever had not initials on ballots. What did you do previously when not both initials were on the ballots?
Karen, I believe I told you that morning, but I'll repeat it. We've never had this problem. Well, we've had problems in this early voting. The girls are wanting to take care of everybody. They have long lines. When they're printing the ballots, They might have pulled a voter's a Boone 1 voter, but they printed the voter a Center 1 ballot. And when it goes to the precinct, it will not read. So poll workers were instructed, if you have a ballot that will not read, you're to put it back in the voter's or envelope, make it a provisional, write on the back of it, M100 would not read. And as all of you know, what did we do in May when they were given the wrong ballot? We got the ballot for their corresponding precinct, and we reduplicated as much as their vote that we could to save their vote.
Okay, but there's never been a ballot in Porter County that's not had both initials on it?
Oh, there might have been some that went out to the precinct, but not of this magnitude.
But my question was, not that magnitude or otherwise, have there ever been ballots in Porter County that did not have both initials on it? And in that case, what did you do?
I've never seen a
You
ballot that
can't
didn't have
put a
both initials on it, Karen.
Okay.
As you know, ballots are secured after the election.
So, Mr. Mr. President and Chair, I would like the board to consider my resolution, which I've handed out one copy to each member, to consider the requirement, based upon the fault being that of the county and not the voter, that any ambiguity about what happened be resolved against the person who caused the error. And since the county is the one who caused the error and is at fault, I would say that we attempt to save these votes and consider them to be in the same procedural way as provisional ballots that have some technicality to be resolved, so that between Election Day and 10 days later under the law, we could open and determine whether we want to certify them as part of the election vote.
Correct.
We don't, I would just say, we don't save anything by considering them void. Whoever is going to come within 122 votes of any race has a freebie for a recount. It's there. Whichever way that goes, you've got 122 votes in question on any race.
For clarification purposes, Mr. Smith, who is one of the individuals, did have a week of training with one of our veteran individuals. It was only the other individual, who has been an inspector prior to, that was working that day only. So I'm a little concerned about, he had a week of training, but you're still saying that's not enough?
Karen, he didn't have one-on-one as what was held here in the building for the other girls, one-on-one. They were both new, working.
No, he had one-on-one with a veteran trainer for a week. The individual was only a...
He worked with a girl, he showed up at 8:30, they started taking care of the folders, Karen. That's not one-on-one.
I spoke to both of them the night before, and they both said they were prepared.
Well, obviously they weren't, or we wouldn't be.
I'm just stating.
Be that as it may, we still have the issue that's in front of us now. And so far what I've heard is nothing's changed from the process that we adopted at our emergency meeting, is we've already done the notice, and the remaining votes that are not recast will be placed in the provisional ballot for review. Is there any change to that process? Because I haven't heard any yet.
No, and that's what I hope the resolution addresses.
So far, I think that's what we've done. So I don't think there's any further resolution. That's the current plan as we're moving forward. Correct?
Yes.
Anybody? That was the previous plan that we adopted. So I'm assuming we'll continue in that progress and hope that we get as many to revote, which would then be 100% curing of any issue that we would have with those ballots, and then the rest will be placed with the provisional ballot for certification after the election, as we've done in the past.
Point of information, Mr. President. Wouldn't it just make sense to make them provisional ballots? They've already voted. Why would you have to have them come back and inconvenience the voter? They've already cast their votes, and they're put aside. But if they're going to be counted, why inconvenience?
If they re-vote, then there's no question as to the validity of the vote itself.
There's still no question to it.
It's going to be placed in the provisional ballot, which then it can still be challenged at that point, certification
Well, you
process.
can challenge any vote at any time. So
Correct. So at this point, the re-vote is to clear any issue or any question regarding them.
Excuse me, Mr. Banger.
So,
That's not my resolution. I'm sorry, let me try to clarify. I'm talking about resolving the matter by eliminating the requirement of dual signatures, so that at this point in time, those are valid votes, even if they do not come back in good faith to
And
do
Mr.
it.
Chairman, if I could interject here, I have some instruction I would like to give to the board on this. First and foremost, just so everybody understands this, the issue with this 118, 122 number of ballots is that they were voted, the voters went to the early voting location in Portage. The issue with those ballots is that state law requires that the absentee voter board do a bipartisan initial of each of those ballots. It is my understanding that these 118 or so ballots don't have that initial. Under state law, they are required to have that initial. So my recommendation to you as the board is that to the extent that these voters want to make sure that their votes are counted, that have been contacted, they need to come back in and they need to vote again during the absentee voting period, the early voting period. Those individuals that come back in, vote again, there should be an ABS 5 that's prepared to be able to spoil their initial ballot that was cast, and then we will move forward with this
This
second
isn't
round.
absentee, this is walk-in, hard copy, mark the ballot. This is early voting, this isn't
It's
absentee.
absentee in person. It's absentee in person, that's what it is.
All right,
So it is absentee, so
Excuse me, can
so
I add
everyone
something?
understands.
When you vote on the e-poll book, if the voter, one of these voters go back to one of those sites to vote, the workers are gonna be told, you've already voted. It's no different than a voter changing their mind, walk out the door. They can't go back and retrieve that ballot. So ballots would have to be made up for each of these voters at all the precincts, an affidavit, a central site. The best resolution to this is what I've recommended. No voter come back. Their vote stands as is, the ballots are quarantined, put provisionally, and counted on the 10th day, along with all the other provisionals that might have been cast that day. End of story.
and that's the resolution that I'm trying to get passed today.
Well, I think,
Which is-
in my opinion, as the attorney for the election board, I think you are doing a disservice to those voters if you are not taking every single effort possible to contact them, which I believe that we are, to get them to come back and cast a new ballot. If you let this information out to the public, that these are just going to be provisionals and they'll be counted, I think you're doing a disservice to them. I think that takes away the motivation for these voters to come back in and cast a new ballot, which is the proper way in which to correct this deficiency. Because, DJ, I think that to the extent that these are provisional ballots, there is the ability under law to say those are defective ballots that should not be counted. If these individuals do not come back and just allow that original ballot to stand, that's the argument that could be made there. They put the validity of their ballots at issue if they do that. The correction, the easiest correction, have them come back in during the early voting period, cast another ballot, and we will spoil the original ballot. That is the message that needs to be conveyed clearly to these voters that were affected by this.
And that to me is a threat. With all due respect, I understand you're a very good legal attorney, but that is a threat which is after the fault of the county. It's the government who screwed up. It's not the voter. How could that make a vote invalid if the county, by negligence, has screwed up?
JJ, I will tell you this, and this is, so everyone understands this as well. There is a statute out there, it's a general savings clause for poll worker error as it relates to these absentee early voting ballots. That if a poll worker, and no issue of the voter themselves, makes an error, that there is a process whereby that ballot can still be counted. But that savings clause accepts out issues where there's not this bipartisan initialing on that absentee ballot. So it's not covered by that. So that is why, I think that if you get this perception out there to these voters, to these individuals, that, hey, I got contacted, I don't have to do anything here, it's going to be provisional, and then hopefully it'll be counted as part of the certification of the election process. I don't think you're not doing them any favors, you're not communicating correct legal interpretation of the election laws to them. So if these individuals are being contacted, it does need to be stressed again, and I know I continue to say this, come back, contact people, come back and vote. We have some time left here still in this early voting period. Come back in. That is the safest way to make sure that your ballot counts.
And I would agree to this extent. It's the safest way for the board. It's the safest way for legal attorneys. This is a huge...
Safest way for the voters, JJ.
Well, you talk to the voters. You talk to the voters and ask
To
them.
the
if this
extent
is
that the
safe.
voters are interested in having their ballot cast, that's the...
They performed. The people who didn't perform is the government. Why would you want to rest on governmental credos when they've already screwed up once and couldn't even mark a ballot with initials? What is going to make that vote any better?
They will come back and be an initial.
Would you trust the government after that? Would you trust the government?
Well, in all the phone calls I made, no, they're very disillusioned at this point. And I stated, 5 will come back out of that 122. So what do we do with the rest of them? Maybe we'll count them on the 10th day. I recommended something to you all on Monday. So quarantine those ballots, we've identified who they are, put them in the ballot. And I can assure you, I will be at that count, and those votes will count.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I mean, she has 5, I have maybe 10 or 12 that are willing to come back. But I hear that if in the event the decision is decided that they do come back, can we make it clear where they come back, the location? Is it at the clerk's office? Is it here? Don't leave that ambiguity there that we'll assume that they know where they're going back, just so that when we are contacting them to come back, we tell them specifically the location that they should go to.
Point of information, I believe that the location that they should vote at is their front door. If this is the county's mistake, then the county needs to go to their front door and get the vote fixed.
That's very good. Appoint a traveling board, go out there, and we get it done, not the voter. We've already screwed up once. Why don't we try to cure it?
Just say that's not going to take place. We've been fielding hundreds of phone calls, as Mr. Lowe knows. I've been documenting for over a month. People can't get the travel board. Poll workers, long-time poll workers have quit. I want to know, after you take this vote on this resolution to save these people's vote, I want to know your contingency plan when polling locations won't open. Long-time poll workers.
Well, I thank you for allowing me to speak, Mr. President, and I would move, can I have an up or down on my proposed resolution as it's worded correctly now, which would be it exonerates the requirement to come back in, and if we hit Election Day and the people have not come back in, we would consider those ballots redundant in the sense we don't need additional signatures. They've already been approved once. This is redundant as all get out.
So we need a second. Because we didn't say anything.
Did they ask for a second?
We need a second for the motion from the board. As written, I cannot support it. With no second, no
What
motion.
changes would you like to see in it to make it work?
I've already stated our procedure. It'll be placed for provisional for review. State law is state law. I'm not the legislature, and as stated by council, that's the law. At this point, the best practice is to get those people back and re-vote. If we have to send out a traveling board, send out a traveling board if they're willing to do so. Make every effort to cure that issue. So I understand your opinion. I'm just saying that the state law is the state law.
The state law is based also a lot of interpretation, for instance.
Dave, you want to get this in?
And at this point, we've also been,
Motion to approve the prior minutes.
what's that?
You want these approved?
Oh, the minutes?
Yeah, at the end.
We also have a notice that was provided to us from the Commissioner's office, from a complaint from the United States Postal Service, that candidates are advised to not put your flyers in the mailbox. They have to be mailed. Do not stuff them in the mailbox. That's so I did pass that along as requested. We do have a motion to approve, or I'll make the motion to approve the minutes from our emergency meetings from
Second.
October 29th.
Second.
All in favor of approving the minutes from our emergency meeting from October 29th as
Aye.
provided by the clerk?
Aye.
So moved. With no business, I have motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor
Second.
for adjournment?
Excuse me.
Aye.
Excuse me, there's one point to this election. As I stated, I want to know if this election board has a contingency plan for polling locations, should they not open.
Well, Kathy, I think what is a little disheartening is that, and I'm going to tell you what we've done. The fact is, on September 21st, we received at noon the chairman's recommendations for the locations. We received under 50 from the Democratic Party. We received the ones from the Republican Party and still are receiving from the precinct individuals. We have offered online training. We have placed the individuals in positions between September 21st and October 9th. Either myself or another member has contacted everybody that worked in the primary. As of right now, we gave you the list because you offered to help on October 25th, and I assume you're still working on that?
I've been sending them back to Gabby. Do I have any poll workers in here right now? Please stand up. Please tell me your encounter with the clerk and the process of what happened to you. Because she is one of hundreds that have come into my office.
So,
Say your name, please.
Elizabeth Engel. In August, I called and said I wanted to work the polls, and they took my name. On September 17th, I got an email that said, if you want to work the polls, send back an email that says vote 2018. So I did that. I've been calling every week since the end of September because I have no idea, well, I do now because I got a place yesterday, where I was going to have to be at 5 a.m. on November 6th. So yesterday, I went to the clerk's office twice, went to the meeting, and I think the thing that concerns me the most is that we're supposed to be bipartisan and we're supposed to have a Democrat and a Republican both working. But at the meeting and at the clerk's office, they both said that if they can't get enough Democrat people, they'll pull from the Republicans, and they can get special dispensation from some committee members, because they keep throwing up committee members to me, and I'm supposed to contact them. Yesterday, I asked Kathy, who is my precinct committee member? There is none. So, I don't know. And then you try to call, you know, and it was tense yesterday. I mean, Karen got mad.
I didn't get mad. I explained to you that we contacted you twice, and I brought the documents. When I personally contacted you and verified your email, and then my other staff member left you a message. You said you never received them. I have it written here. Then here's the email.
I've never received a phone call, and it's so public and everything. You can look at my phone. I didn't get it. She told me that, well, your voicemail isn't working, maybe...
No, I said there's a possibility. I didn't say you were specific.
Maybe that isn't working. I'm home all day, so I got it. I just wanted to work the polls, and at this point, I'm ready to chuck it, and I'm with Kathy. I feel like there's not going to be enough people to work the polls, and what are you going to do?
Is this state law, we have to have a Democrat and Republican?
Yes.
So it's important that we...
The way the boards are filled.
So they can change this law, but not the one with the signatures? I just want to make sure which law.
That's right, so that's right.
You
Yes.
can't, so
No
they can get
kidding.
special dispensation from...
Okay, wait a second. Let's clarify this. First of all, Kathy is the vice chairman of the Democratic Party. If you don't have precinct committeemen, then you need to contact her, because they set aside the precinct committeemen, not the Republicans. I have a Democrat working in my office who used to work for Kathy. That is the Democrat, Becky Rook. And I have a Republican.
You were talking to me yesterday, and I felt like you were yelling at me. I didn't raise my voice at you. You wouldn't let me finish one sentence because you kept interrupting me to tell me what you knew. You don't know that I've been trying to get a hold of somebody. Your office has not called me back, and I finally got a hold 5 in the morning. For me, it's important to help people get to vote. I'm sorry that you guys are so stressed or whatever your story is.
Nobody said that. No, nobody ever said anything about being stressed.
I just feel like the Democrats haven't had a chance. You haven't started calling any of the poll workers. There were several in here yesterday that said they had not gotten a call and didn't even know. I got the information from the Democrat committee to come to the meeting, but then you say that if you don't get enough Democrats, you're going to pull Republicans to work like clock.
That happens. There are individuals. We've had Democrats work in the Republican area, and what happens is the chairman signs off on it.
But if
It can
I'm
happen.
at a meeting yesterday and there's 5, 6, 12 people sitting around me that wanted to work and never heard from you guys, so everybody's answering machine didn't work, everybody's phone didn't work.
Victoria?
Just to express on how most poll workers are supposed to be recruited, there is the party chairman recommendation list that needs to go to the election board to fill the precinct. It's up to the parties and their precinct committee prior to that deadline that the party chairman turns in that precinct list, that it's the responsibility of the precinct committeemen to fill those boards. It's not the responsibility of the election board to necessarily fill those boards.
Excuse me, Victoria.
They gotta enter the recommendations from the party chairman and from the precinct committee. So, I mean, if there's a delay on how people are getting placed, it may be because those that are putting those placements in based on recommendations from the precinct committeeman and the party chairman and utilizing the people who worked in the primary. We have some who have a Republican inspector who want to work with the Democratic judge, but yet the party chairman may have that particular individual placed somewhere else that isn't the precinct that they want to work at in that polling place.
Can I just clarify, because I read about, my mother-in-law is in Florida, and she texted, she read the story about her son. Precinct committeemen, the Democrats were elected in May. Not everybody signed up to be a precinct committeeman. And not everyone that won the precinct committeeman position answered the call to find me poll workers. I even told them that the party chairman had worked the polls. If he could do it, you as a precinct committeeman could do it. The deadline was September 22nd to submit to the clerk. The code goes on to say, if the chairman fails to do this, or he can't find enough workers, it falls on the election board to fill
I
it.
agree with
You didn't finish that, Victoria.
No,
You didn't know, I know, you were done talking,
No,
but in any event,
Kathy, so did the Democratic Party chairman fail to
no,
nominate enough
he did not, he
individuals?
gave
Okay.
the names again. And I have continuously.
So he gave enough names
Since Becky.
to fully staff
No,
all the polling
neither did the
locations?
Republican
No,
candidate.
but that was my question to you.
Neither did the Republican.
But you just said he did, so was it yes
No,
or
you
was it
didn't.
no? Yes, you
He
did.
read the deadline of the name he had.
And I didn't have enough, but I have fed them in continuously.
But
And I know about the election board, if they need to go to the main primaries and get the workers that worked in the main primaries, but they say you're not.
But you know what? Victoria told me
They're neat,
to
though.
board.
They're not
I'm
done.
telling you,
There's a
the
lady,
Republican
young girl.
Because your chairman failed to do it.
But he said.
No,
that's
we're
not
not.
fair.
Young girl.
Tell me his list by
I don't know
September
what his
22nd
name
to you.
The chair,
Next
you
to
have
the
to ask.
old-
And here's another
He's been
thing.
waiting a
The clerk took over elections in 16.
He's over.
She has the name of every poll worker that worked in 16.
Okay.
Thirdly, Victoria,
One at
she
a
has the
time.
names and the phone numbers.
One
He
at a
adjourned.
If the
time.
chairman could not secure enough workers,
It was
they
the
had
man
that
up there,
list
too,
go
the
down.
adjournment.
Okay.
Thirdly, you want to look again. Michelle,
The
you want to
meeting
look
is
again.
over. If you'd like to stay, you can
They closed it out, they made it look like
Okay,
a
here's the other
We
thing now.
adjourned.
If you have
Yeah,
only
go
the
ahead,
same
wrap it.
representation on the same list that we found addresses and phone numbers wrong because people have moved from the list and the data.
then you're
that
going to
you
contact
have
the voters.
American flag.
You're also eliminating people out in the general public who are calling or emailing or going to their precinct committeeman and saying, hey, I want to work,
So they
But I've
just
been
go
told
to the
I
clerk's
can't
office if
work
they have questions
because these
regarding
positions
their
have already
co-working
been
assignment.
promised to other
And
people.
that would be
That's
the
how-
proper,
You have to pull
right.
a recruitment of co-workers from everyone. I agree with you.
The meeting has been adjourned. If you want to take your questions regarding the poll worker assignments to the clerk's office, they can go ahead and do it.
You don't have enough poll workers.
The meeting has been adjourned.
What are you gonna do, Mr. Banks?
I guess we'll deal with it when we deal with
This
it.
election has been taken, couldn't get it
They're
wrong.
taking, right, we were talking about
I'm ready to work. You know what?
But that's my, So there's. If we do it, then you force.
And I mean, and I know, no, but understand,
I'm not to break the law.
I'm not arguing right away.
I think just, that's why I did no harm, no foul here.
That's the way I look at it. That's the. Well, and it may not, and the margin may not matter. No, I mean, the recommendation is clear, you have to revote the, like I told you. Correct. And like I told her, the only choice you have to do what the other towns have done, and you say, provisionally, they pass money, and we'll accept it. However, as soon as somebody does a challenge to try to avoid those 118 votes, I don't think we have a leg to stand on legally. But us as the legislature can pass that provisional ballot and accept it. I'm not saying it, but I'm saying.
I understand that there's a public also. I understand.
I'll probably get them challenged.
But I mean, I think that's, you have to balance it. But you don't want to tell people don't show up.
Don't call back, don't revote.
That's wrong to say that.
Agreed.
Well, I felt bad. I don't know what she was talking
She
about.
works in my office. She knows how work requires.
Actually,
She knows, she's been filling in, I'll show you 3 months of email. She's been
we had
filling
9 witnesses together after Bobby got involved.
You're fast up every day.
I'll do the same thing they do. They didn't have judges, and they took inspectors and switched and made them 3 or 4. So if you have 4 different, and you have, you know, do the same thing they do. Am I nervous about not having them? I go on the radio channel for additional people.
And that's the way it is every time. I mean, you were treating people until midnight.
Well, I think Monday before the election was
That's all good. So you're right.
There's one right there. Yeah, you know, that's spelling.
I emailed her. Both voters will attempt to come back to Valpo. Work till 3 every day, will try. Phone network. Over the road, but truck driver won't come. This was a joke, not coming in 45 minutes and then we're idiots. That's all of them. It's a shame. Thanks, Jay. He feels her vote should be counted without coming back. No answer to the voicemail. So, these two people, Karen and Darrell, I wrote a letter to the ACLU.